Delay. We're live with
All right.
Karl Schmieder, right?
Schmieder, yeah.
Schmieder, almost. Karl's in Brooklyn, New York. I'm in Oaxaca, Mexico. And yeah, Karl is MS, he's MFA. He's growing biotech businesses. He's translating science into action. So, also co host of a podcast. It's called Grow Everything Pods. And CEO at Messaginglab, which is a strategic communication marketing firm. Today, we're going to talk about Karl's background, everything he's been up to. He's an author as well, by the way. He's a lot of things. How he got into entrepreneurship, lessons that he had over the year, challenges, struggles, right? How he made it through. But before we do, bookwritegpt.com is presenting this podcast. If you want to start your own podcast, bookwritegpt.com, that is, if you want to start your own book, if you want to take all your LinkedIn posts and craft a beautiful book that you can publish on Kindle, you can go to bookwritegpt.com. Karl, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Thanks, Charles. I appreciate you inviting me. I'm really happy to be here. What am I up to? We're up to all sorts of things. I mean, on the one hand, like you said, we run this strategic communications and marketing company that helps emerging biotech companies grow. I noticed that you've had a couple of biotech founders on here, particularly Mark Cotter, who we've had on our pod. Yeah, he's a beast. He's been on our podcast before. In addition to doing that, helping biotech companies grow, we also help large companies biologize. So what that means is big companies that are looking to secure supply chains, regionalize them, use new high performance materials that they can only get from biology. We help them think through what the strategies are for doing that. And we also are in the process of creating value chain syndicates or ecosystems where we put together innovators with large companies and people who are interested in funding those innovations to get them into those larger companies so that there's bigger distribution and we can have a larger impact. And then on top of that, as you mentioned, we run a podcast called Grow Everything, where we basically explore biology as a technology with mostly avoiding what's happening in the biopharma space, so that a lot of the developments that we end up covering are related to what happens in biopharma. But anything that you can imagine where you're using biology to create a material, to build a building, to suck carbon out of the air, all of those things are happening in the background. And my partner Iram and I started the podcast because we kept having conversations with people about these developments, but we noticed that most people really have no idea what biology is being used for. And to us, biotech, biology is, with AI, the two most important technologies of the century.
Very interesting. I'm curious because, yes, I'm targeting biotech founders and CEOs as well. The reason why is that they're amazing companies, right? A lot of them, they save lives. It's really life-changing to work with such a company and contribute to their mission. But there's challenges also with working with biotechs, right? Like not all of them are funded. Their cycles are pretty long, right? So they might have to wait like 5 years just to be profitable. What are the challenges and the triumphs of working with biotechs, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. So you're talking specifically about the biopharma side, and biopharma can be a very long cycle, and it does take a lot of money to raise money for biopharma. But what we're also seeing is that the application of AI to drug discovery, to improving the clinical trial, the whole clinical development process, those are all going to shorten timelines. And on the one hand, we may see a commoditization where on the drug discovery side, though there are going to be plenty of opportunities for companies to develop new molecules or new peptides. But on the other side of it, it does, as you say, take a really long time, especially when we're talking about regulatory. On the non-healthcare biotech side, things tend to move a little bit quicker. And I'll give you an example of a client that we worked with and we continue to work with, a company called K18 Hair, K18 Hair is essentially a biotech company disguised as a hair care company. And they were very focused in their market and basically developed a playbook for commercializing biotech to really a very specific audience. In their case, it was stylists. Their initial product was a hair mask that basically would take hair that's highly treated with chemical processes and turned it into virgin hair. So if you're someone who got your hair treated a lot and you treated it with K18, it would basically give your stylist a blank palette to work with. And K18 had incredible successes over the course of a very short period of time, they ended up being purchased by Unilever in one of the most successful exits outside of biopharma in biotech writ large. So biopharma takes a really long time for things to commercialize, but on the non-healthcare biotech side, things can move very quickly.
And you studied biotech. Is that why you got into it? How's it been to work with mostly biotechs in the last couple of years? Has it been a good niche, or do you feel that it could grow faster?
So the last couple of years have been murder. It's been a bit of a biotech winter, particularly on the biopharma side. I think people were expecting things to move a little bit faster. It's been very challenging for bioindustrials and really almost impossible for companies that are working on the food side, creating new types of food. Very challenging environment for them. Of course, we all want things to move faster, but we do think that, given the impact of AI, given the importance of the technology, we are going to see things move a lot faster. And then just to circle back, I'm trained as a biochemist / molecular biologist, have a master's degree in biochemistry, but then I also have a master's degree in creative writing. So I have a bit of an unusual background. I always worked on the communications and strategy side of the biotech industry, spent a little bit of time in tech, helped build up 2 digital healthcare companies where I helped raise the money, build the brand, set up the sales teams, and then really focused on what was happening in biotech, about half in biopharma and half outside, as the basis of Messaginglab.
Love that. So what do you have in mind for this year? What goals do you have for the firm? And tell me a bit more about the podcast as well. What's your strategy to reach these GTM goals of yours?
So on the business side, we're quite busy. As I said, we split our time between emerging companies and big companies. And it can be everything from go-to-market strategy to really how do you communicate with an audience in order to raise money. And then on the big brand side, like I said, it's really communicating value and helping them be better about incorporating biology into their businesses. On the podcast side, we're 125 episodes in, and we're looking always to just grow our audience and to get the word out about the impact that biotech is having on all aspects of our lives. I mean, it's kind of like what we're seeing with AI. People say, well, when's biotech going to have its DeepSeek moment? And I would say it really had it already during the pandemic. The ability for scientists to come together and develop the vaccines against COVID in a very short period of time ended up saving millions of people's lives. You can hate or love that story, but for me, that was really the DeepSeek moment for biotechnology.
And what does your GTM looks like? Do you leverage cold email to get new clients? Do you send them messages on LinkedIn?
Yeah, we don't really do that. I mean, most of the work that we get on the Messaginglab side ends up coming through referrals. We are pretty well known in our market. People know us. We're constantly out there at events and doing a lot of speaking. And then the podcast has been very helpful for us in terms of getting in front of people that we normally wouldn't talk to. I'm sure that's the case for you. But we're very lucky and privileged in that the majority of our business comes from referrals. And the cool stuff that comes through, we are very selective about what we work with, because we just want to make sure that the portfolio that we have as a company really fits with our thesis and the impact that biotech has on the world.
And what's your thesis specifically?
So there's a couple things. I mean, like one of the big ones is that we believe biology is really the new infrastructure. Biology isn't really just a tool for making drugs or food. It's really this infrastructure layer that underpins the creation of materials, any kind of manufacturing, and really eventually we're already starting to hear people talk about its impact on computation. So you've got people like Andreessen Horowitz saying things like software is eating the world. We're saying biology is going to eat the world when it comes specifically to supply chains. The implication is that companies that are able to master biomanufacturing quickly as an infrastructure are really going to be the ones that have the biggest impact, especially when they combine these things with AI. And then the other big thesis that we have is that does appear to be a bottleneck when it comes to biotechnology, but that bottleneck isn't scientific discovery. The bottleneck is orchestration or orchestration for commercialization. So we will continue to develop and discover new biological solutions, but being able to turn those solutions into scalable, cost-competitive products that navigate IP, regulatory, and consumer adoption, that's really where the skill is. And those who are able to take those new inventions and orchestrate them into ecosystems, like I said earlier, and creating these integrated value chains, those are really going to be where the biggest impacts are and are felt.
And what's biomanufacturing? Tell me a bit more about that.
So for anybody that doesn't know biomanufacturing, what I usually say is if you can just think of most people around the world are near a microbrewery. And so a microbrewery is probably the most basic type of biomanufacturing there is. You put water with, barley and some sugar and yeast, and the yeast turns those ingredients into something valuable. Same thing happens in winemaking. So if you can imagine that same kind of process being used to create a material, whether that's a brick for construction or something you would wear, or even like a computation device, that's what we're talking about when it comes to biomanufacturing. So if you can just think of those microbreweries that are anywhere around the world as manufacturers, that's really what we talk about when we talk about biomanufacturing.
And with the newly held tariffs, do you think that supply chains are going to be disrupted and that your clients are mostly going to manufacture in the US and find new methods to do so?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been kind of moving towards this anyway when it comes to localizing supply chains, whether that really means we're not importing as much stuff from across the oceans. I think what is imported is going to be things that are really very valuable that you can't make locally. It does take a long time to build up manufacturing capability, even on the biomanufacturing side. But in our vision, you would have a big company that would have a local biomanufacturing plant right next to the big facility. So let's say you were a company that uses a lot of colors, a lot of dyes in your food or in your products. You might have a facility right next to you that could take local waste, local organic waste, local bio feedstock is what we say, and convert that into the color that you need. So I do think that the tariffs do have the opportunity to move a lot of that infrastructure, I'll say back to the United States or into the United States, but I think it's really much more of a North America thing. I don't think it's just US local. We do have a lot of feedstock here, but costs can still be very high. So I think really the most valuable things are the ones that should be manufactured here. I think keeping things local with Mexico and Canada are really important. Politics withstanding, I think they're our most important trading partners, and they should continue to be. And so we do have a big opportunity to localize supply chains that way.
Right. And you mentioned, I think, AlphaFold in your industry has been the main groundbreaking advancement in technology in the last couple of years. How are your clients integrating into the new AI age that we're into right now?
Yeah, so I mean, AlphaFold, the discovery can't be downplayed. I don't think I specifically mentioned it, but maybe I did in the show notes. I mean, it is an incredibly important discovery, but it's not, the end. It's really the beginning. Um, your question is more like how we see our clients incorporating AI, and on that protein discovery side, on that protein side, AI really is essential for engineering proteins, and proteins are, among the most active, important molecules on the planet. Really, our bodies are, a huge percentage proteins, and they do everything. Their infrastructure, they move things around, they catalyze chemical reactions. They're incredibly important, and being able to engineer them means that on the one side, when it comes to healthcare, you're much more able to develop very targeted medicines. But then on the non-healthcare side, you can start to imagine, cosmetic products that are created with engineered proteins. Even on the bioindustrial side, one of the things that we talk about is that most of the natural enzymes that you would find out there, which have been incredibly important, by the way. An example of those is the enzymes that you find in detergent that allow you to get clothes clean with cold water, which is a relatively new development and saves a lot of energy. So it's good for the environment. But being able to engineer enzymes that work at an industrial level in environments that they normally wouldn't be in is incredibly important. So we see our clients using AI across the board. I know that we use it internally a lot. And I just think that, I'm incredibly excited about what's happening with AI and its applications to biology. So I don't think anybody's not going to be touched by it. So it's incredibly, an exciting time to be living.
And is it not an option not to be eco-conscious nowadays as a biotech?
That's a tough question, because on the one hand, we say, being sustainable is basically table stakes, and that the train, or however you want to put it, has left the station many years ago. So even if the language is being erased as we speak about sustainability and climate change, I think people are going to quickly realize that there's a lot of ways to make money, and as they see that climate sustainability, climate change related industries and sustainable industries are actually going to make people more money, they too will want to incorporate those technologies. So I think that there's no doubt that biotech companies are looking for ways to be more sustainable. They just might not say it publicly. I think a lot of people are kind of holding that news close to the vest these days.
Tell me a bit more about your pod structure. How do you find the guests specifically? How do you plan the topics? How do you make it interesting for them and the audience?
Yeah, so I'll admit that, like, a lot of the guests are people that I know or people that I've come into contact with. A few of the guests have been people that have come to us cold. I'm sure, like you get a lot of people pitching themselves to be on your podcast, and we get a fair amount of inbound, but we tend to be very selective because we're looking less for the biopharma innovators and are looking much more for the people who have these kind of non-intuitive applications of biology that can have a very big impact. Sorry, ask me the question again, Charles. I apologize.
Yeah, the full system behind your podcast. So basically, yeah, the conversation itself, the question, planning. How do you make it interesting in the end?
Yeah, so most of the people we have interviewed have some kind of public presence. And so what we'll do is take a look at what they've done, put all this stuff into either like a notebook LLM or into one of the LLMs to just see what kinds of things they talk about, and then really try to find questions that haven't been asked or things that they haven't covered. And always thinking about the public, we try to keep it very high level so that people who are really not familiar with the technology can log into any of the episodes and really get something out of it. And kind of the biggest compliment we've gotten from many of our guests is, hey, my mom listened to this, now she understands what I do. And so that makes it kind of fun. But we've got a long list of people who we're targeting. We reach out to them, If they accept, then we'll generate the questions. And typically what we'll do is we always send the questions in advance, just like you did. Your system is a little bit more automated than ours is, but we're still pretty automated when it comes to the questions we generate. And then we record. We've got a production team. Iram does a lot of the first pass editing just to make sure things are right. She does a tremendous job on it. And then we also have a team that kind of automates all the promotion behind the podcast. So it's a pretty nicely honed machine, but we're always looking for new ways to automate and new ways to just make it better to get it in front of more people.
Right. And the plan behind it, is it to have sponsors eventually? Do you want to monetize it with AdSense? Or is it that the lead gen machine or more of an authority play?
So it's kind of a combination of those. We've had our first few sponsors, do a series of episodes. It does really work very nicely as an authority play. I said earlier that it allows us to get in front of people we normally wouldn't get in front of. And so I think it's been really useful for that. Of course, it's super nice to have, specific sponsors, people who are looking for our audience, it's nice to have it paid for that way. But I think more than anything, it functions as an authority play for us. I think you're muted.
Thanks for that. Tell me about the day-to-day in your life, what it looks like, what time you wake up, what habits you're nurturing to be better.
It's I don't know how interesting it is, but I tend to get up, 6:30-ish or so, do some stretching, and usually write for an hour and a half while having that first cup of coffee. I find that morning time to be really a good time to get a bunch of the writing out. And then depending on the day of the week, I usually go to the gym after that for a workout. And then typically bike to the office. My office, I'm very lucky, is about 20 minutes away. And then try to get more writing done related to the business writing, and then spend the afternoon doing calls with people. I'm an empty nester. I have 3 sons. And so tend to juggle them, depending on the day. And, end of the day looks like 6 or 7 for me. Bike home, go have dinner with my wife, and then probably put in another hour or 2 at the computer, before I stop, read a book, meditate, and go to sleep.
And what are you reading nowadays?
So right now I happen to be reading 3 books. I usually have a couple books going on. I'm reading a short introduction to immunology. I kind of wanted to get back introduced into this space, which is I'd taken a class in immunology a long time ago. And then usually I have a couple of fictional books going on. Right now I happen to be reading Agency by William Gibson. I'd read it before, but it made sense to read it. I don't know why I decided to read it again. And then an Elmore Leonard mystery called, it's called Freaky Deaky, is the Elmore Leonard mystery I'm reading right now as well.
Karl, thanks for sharing the value today on the pod. Where can people find out more about you?
So you can find me at Messaginglab.com, and the Messaginglab.com site has a link to Grow Everything and the Grow Everything podcast. That's usually the easiest place to find me. If you're someone who's on LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So those are the best places. And my email is Karl@Messaginglab.com.
So it was Karl Schmieder and Charles